As the world became electrified in the final decades of the 19th century, copper mining towns like Bisbee in southern Arizona boomed. Demand for copper skyrocketed. The number of miners and technological innovation kept pace, allowing mines to reach deeper into the earth and increasing the quantity of what could be called ore. Digging In, Bisbee's Mineral Heritage, the new permanent exhibit at the Bisbee Mining and Historical Museum, created in partnership with the Smithsonian Institution, tells the story of the men, their tools, the rock they mined, and the products they gave to the world. Let's take a tour through the exhibit. Although the Industrial Revolution had changed many industries, mining in 1880 was still a business that relied on muscle, steel, and dynamite. Digging In shows how the unprecedented demand for copper would change that equation. For the Bisbee miner, a day underground began in the change house. Here he would remove his street garb and don the sweat-stained, dirt-caked diggers, which had been airing out since the last shift on a hook or in a wire basket hanging from the rafters.
This exhibit tells the story of Bisbee mines, its miners, and the tools they use, and why more and more copper had to be dug from the earth.
Each miner would brass in, getting an identification tag from the timekeeper. At the end of shift, he would return this brass tag, and all would know he was safely back on the surface. Miners by the hundreds would descend into the earth, spending their days at a variety of trades, sending ever-increasing quantities of blue and green minerals to the surface to be turned into copper.
Early miners did everything by hand as they drove miles of tunnels through hard rock to get to copper.
Digging In's exhibits explain many of the miners' jobs. A man would begin his career underground as a mucker, shoveling broken ore into a car to be pushed by a trammer to a point where the ore could be hauled to the surface. With experience, a miner could learn to drill holes into the rock, to set the dynamite in those holes for blasting, and to install the elaborate framework of support timber called square sets that highlight the Digging In exhibits. As mines throughout the West grew, particularly copper mines, they began to create and adapt new technology.
Technology not only increased production, it improved safety in the mines.
Drilling was one of the hardest jobs and the one which most limited the pace of mining. Thus, hand drilling was one of the first skills replaced by mechanization. The measure of work went from inches drilled in an hour to feet. Copper was mined for electricity, and by 1900, electricity had entered the copper mines, bringing more improvements. Technological innovation also brought light to the mines, sunlight. Using steam-powered shovels and ore cars running on railroad tracks, the open-pit mine came to Bisbee in 1917.
Bisbee's first open pit wouldn't last long, but this innovation was the way of the future. It was also far safer.
Bisbee's second open-pit mine, started in the 1950s, would use huge electric shovels that could maneuver on their own tracks to fill diesel-powered, rubber-tired trucks that could hold, at the time, an astounding 25 tons of ore. But while underground mining had little impact on the landscape, entire communities had to be moved to make way for the Lavender open-pit mine. As open-pit mines became more common in the 20th century, their technology continued to improve as well. A steam shovel in Bisbee's first pit could move about 5 tons of broken rock. Today's electric shovels can move almost 20 times that much to fill trucks that carry not 25 tons, as in the 1950s pit, but 240 to 480 tons. That's equal to a fully loaded 747 jetliner.
That means that one shovel cab operator today does the work of over 12,500 muckers of the past. One truck driver does the work of over 900 trammers. It takes 6 tires this size to haul such a load.
If today's mines use such huge equipment, why aren't we flooded with copper? The answer is in what we call ore.
Ore is not a geologic term, it's an economic one. Ore is rock that pays its way. Three things determine the value of ore. The first is metal content, the second, production cost, and the third is consumer demand.
The first copper produced in Bisbee in the early 1880s came from a large surface deposit known as the Glory Hole. Here the ore was rich, as much as 60% copper. That rich ore, bright blues and deep greens, was soon used up, however, and miners had to start tunneling deep into the surrounding hills. Early mining often encountered beautiful minerals. Many of these were carefully removed and shipped to museums and expositions around the world, drawing millions of visitors.
These minerals weren't on display just for their beauty. They were there to show that Arizona's economic potential made it a candidate for statehood.
On average, every ton of rock hauled to the surface in 1880 contained some 600 pounds of copper. That would make the grade 30%. Soon the grade had fallen to about 10%, and the only way to keep increasing copper production was to employ more and more miners. In the early years, miners would bypass rock containing less than 10% copper. By the 1940s, however, a combination of better equipment and better prices made the mining of ore with just 4% copper, or 80 pounds to the ton, profitable. In the first open-pit mine in the 1920s, the grade was only 2%. By the time of the second open-pit mine, the one that still can be seen today, the grade had dropped to about 1% when it started and about 0.5% when production ended in the 1970s. Future mining, employing modern technology and fewer miners, could recover copper from ore grading less than 10 pounds per ton. Future mining will be different in other ways, too. In the past, a company could start a mine without regard to the environment, an almost unknown concept a century ago. Today, a mountain of paperwork has to be prepared before a mountain of copper can be mined. Mining once opened the West. Today, mining must help preserve the West. With all of this in mind, is it worth it to mine copper at all? Why is having this copper so important?
If you plug it into a wall, if it uses a motor, you're using copper. And that accounts for the thousands of things we use every day, in every room of our house, at work, in our cars, at play, everywhere.
The final display in Digging In shows the ultimate destination of the minerals, the ores of Bisbee. Prior to the 1880s, there were uses for copper that had been around for years: plating for kitchen utensils, cartridge cases, pipes, and roofs. In the early 1880s, however, that all changed with the building of the first plant to generate electricity. Within a few years, there would be no end to the appliances and tools that could run on the electricity that was delivered to every home and business. Telephone, radio, refrigerators and air conditioning, television and the computer. The average American uses 25 pounds of copper a year, or a ton in a lifetime.
Multiply that by 300 million and you'll get an idea of how much copper mining it takes just to take care of our country.
Copper mining has been around almost since the dawn of time. It drove the age of electricity, and it is driving the computer age. Bisbee's miners and Bisbee's minerals are a vital link to this heritage. The men who mined copper lived out exciting, dangerous lives, often 1,000 feet below the surface, to bring us this wealth. What they brought to the surface was both useful and beautiful, and gives us a powerful sense of their place in history and Bisbee's place in history.
If you don't think we're dependent on copper, just think about the last time the power went out.